This explainer examines navigating intellectual property in the age of artificial intelligence by the European Innovation Council and SMEs Executive Agency and the European Commission. The purpose of this explainer is academic research and educational study. Okay, let's look at the agenda for today's explainer. We'll start with the research question, then move on to key concepts and definitions, the analytical framework, target audience and governance, and finally, wrap up with our conclusions and takeaways.
Section 1. The research question. Identifying the academic and legal gap. So, where do we actually start? Well, we have to pin down the exact problem that sparked this entire report from the EU. We're not just talking about some minor software update here, right? This is a massive paradigm shift. The authors explicitly state that AI is a disruptive technology that has fundamentally changed how humans create. Think about that for a second. AI isn't just a fancy new paintbrush. It's blurring the lines of creation itself, and that creates some serious friction with intellectual property laws that were written, centuries ago. And that friction leads us straight to our core research question. If the very nature of human creation is changing, how in the world do our legal frameworks keep up? How do we navigate intellectual property when a machine starts acting like a creator? This is the massive academic gap the European Union is attempting to bridge here.
Section 2. Key concepts and definitions. Establishing our working vocabulary. All right, before we get into the heavy analysis, we need to map out our basic variables. First up, we have intellectual property, or IP. Now, traditionally, IP is a legal shield built entirely around a human creator. It protects the outputs of human ingenuity. If you write a novel, paint a canvas, or invent a gadget, IP law gives you the rights to manage, protect, and monetize that work. The absolute keyword here is human. Then, on the flip side, we have generative AI. The report defines this as a highly disruptive, transformative technology that actually generates outputs on its own. And the authors use a very specific phrase here, unlocking undefined potential. That word undefined is huge. It basically means we have no idea where the ceiling is, which, as you can imagine, is exactly what keeps regulators and legal scholars up at night. So when you put these two concepts side by side, you can really see the tension driving this whole paper. On one hand, you have traditional IP creation. It's bounded, it's human-driven, and the law understands it perfectly. On the other hand, you've got generative AI outputs, machine-driven, totally disruptive, and full of this wild, undefined potential. This entire EU report is basically an attempt to figure out what happens when these two completely different worlds collide. Section 3. The analytical framework. The 3 pillars of the EU's investigation. Now, the European Commission didn't just look at this giant collision and throw their hands up. They broke the problem down sequentially into 3 distinct pillars, mapping out the entire life cycle of AI. They looked at how to protect the tool itself, the risks during its development phase, and finally, what to do with the outputs it produces. Let's walk through each of these steps. Pillar 1 tackles a really practical defensive question. How can intellectual property actually be protected in the age of AI? Like, if you're an engineer building a cutting-edge AI system, how do existing IP laws protect your architecture, your unique software, and your algorithms? So the framework kicks off by treating the AI itself as a piece of intellectual property that needs defending. Then, Pillar 2 shifts gears from defense to risk assessment, and it asks a massive question. Does the actual development of AI inherently trigger mass IP infringement? We all know AI models have to learn by ingesting oceans of data. So the authors are asking if feeding all this pre-existing human creation into a machine constitutes a widespread violation of copyright. This is a huge bottleneck in AI development right now. Finally, Pillar 3 looks at the end product. Once the AI is trained and running, how do we legally and practically deal with what it generates? If you type in a prompt and get a brand new piece of code or a stunning image, who owns it? Is it you, the user? Is it the developer who built the AI, or does nobody own it because a human didn't technically create it? This is where the rubber really meets the road for most people. Section 4. Target audience and governance. Applying the framework. Of course, theory is great, but the European Commission's mandate is practical governance. The authors are incredibly clear that the whole point of this analysis is to move us away from that chaotic, undefined potential and into a system of clearly governed AI interaction.
The EU wants to establish standardized rules for IP protection and management so that everyone actually knows what to expect in the market. Predictability is the goal here. And to make that governed state a reality, the report zeroes in on two distinct groups: the developers building these AI tools and the users who are actually deploying them. The big takeaway is that managing IP isn't just a headache for big tech companies anymore. It's a shared legal responsibility, and everyday users need a crystal clear understanding of the rules they're playing by.
Section 5. Conclusion and takeaways. Reconstructing the final argument.
So, where does this all lead? The author's final conclusions really boil down to three things. Their main contribution is providing this structured EU governance framework for AI and IP, but they fully admit a huge limitation. AI's technological potential is still totally undefined. It's evolving so fast that laws might be outdated the second they're drafted. Because of that, future research absolutely has to focus on monitoring how mass infringement risks and ownership debates evolve as newer, wilder AI models are released. If you only remember three things from today's explainer, make it these points straight from the Commission. Number 1, AI isn't just a tool. It has completely disrupted the nature of human creation. Number 2, any solid legal framework has to tackle all three phases: protecting the AI, preventing infringement during training, and governing the final outputs. And number 3, under EU governance, the burden of managing IP falls on both the developers who build the systems and the users who operate them. I want to leave you with this provocative thought as you continue diving into the intersection of technology and law. We know AI is unlocking undefined potential, but when it comes to intellectual property, are we just slapping band-aids on a framework that's centuries old? Or are we speeding toward a moment where the entire concept of IP has to be completely reinvented from the ground up? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the frameworks around you.